Bixler, CEO of Senslytics. So you guys are very familiar with a lot of AI tools. You're probably figuring out how to implement those into your company, but those only go so far. Those don't solve a lot of the integrity problems, and there's a few reasons why. Pipeline integrity does not have big data. Let me clarify what I mean by that. You have ILI runs that have hundreds of thousands of rows, but you don't have thousands of ILI runs on the same pipeline so you can correlate those and build a model off of those. You're also not dealing with things with immediate cause and effect. And all of these models, the ChatGPT types, any correlation model, they're built off of immediate cause and effect. So let's talk about what AI capabilities are needed to maximize the impact for pipelines. As I mentioned, understanding cause and effect rather than just correlation. The time-delayed components. What I'm going to talk about a lot is corrosion. Obviously not an immediate impact. Identifying outlier behavior. Most of what AI is designed to do is to point you towards what's most likely. However, in your jobs, the average, the most likely, isn't always the most important. What's most important is identifying that outlier or rare event that causes a pipeline failure. To get there, we need data interoperable platforms. So we need to be able to understand the relationships between the data. We need to be able to look at field level NDT data, corrosion coupons, SCADA data, and ILI data all together integrated so that we can take all the value from this information. And the final thing, and this is last on the list, but this is probably the most important. If we're not going to be correlation-based, if we're going to be causation-based, we've got to capture the subject matter expert knowledge, because we can't get there through brute force correlations. And so what that looks like is turning that knowledge into code before people retire, which is happening, fairly rapidly in this industry, so that you've institutionalized that knowledge. So what is causal AI? Causal AI is basically cause and effect relationships. So it's looking at counterfactual data. For example, what if I change my corrosion inhibitor program? What effect does that have on the corrosion rate? It's already used in things like economics, marketing, epidemiology. It has not gotten to a lot of the physical sciences yet, like biology, geology, chemistry, but we're building something. And I'll quickly just demonstrate here kind of the difference between typical AI and what I'm talking about. So on the left-hand side, you see a basic machine learning model. And at the simplest level, what you're trying to do is fit a line to the data. And these red dots, those look like outliers. They appear random. They skew the data, so they're thrown out. But as I mentioned, those are the most important points, because those are where you get calls that something just went really wrong and an asset's out of service or there was some sort of damage. So we need to identify those. The average isn't what is as relevant. So when we get to causal AI and we start looking at what factors are most important, we want to start looking at different situations. So we see not all these blue dots are part of the same situation. And we can even see situations where these red dots belong to the same situation as the blue dots. And if we're looking at the corrosion growth rate on the y-axis and time on the x-axis, then you can see that there's some situations that may not grow, the corrosion may not grow that quick at first, but then takes off exponentially. Well, how do we get to that? We've got to be able to take what we can learn from the data and use the subject matter expertise to say what's relevant in a given situation and what is not relevant, constrain those situations. Take a view that's multiple views. So if we see all the different layers underneath this front page, these are like multiple views. So a metallurgical view, a hydraulic view, a chemical view, a biological view. What bubbles up to the top is what the AI is telling you is most reliable. And here's the great thing about using causal AI, because you're looking for cause and effect. When you end up in this situation, this white space right here, the AI can't identify a cause. Since it's not just correlating, it's going to tell you it doesn't know, which is actually a good answer. Because if it, rather than getting a wrong answer, you now know, okay, this is where I need to focus my resources because this is what the AI does not understand. So what we're going for and what we're building towards is an explainable AI, where it is telling you basically what stage is the corrosion at. And this may be hard to read from back there, but it says it's accelerating. What's the mechanism? This says it's microbial. It says there's 3 years of remaining life. But what's most interesting is to get these drivers of corrosion in order of influence. So here it says that there are high TDS levels that are resulting in high conductivity. Well, if you've had samples that you say, those were inaccurate, your first move isn't to go dig up this location, it's to go sample again, which is much cheaper. And so you now have something that you can argue with, so you know, hey, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, but it's not a black box. So just a first example of this, and I'm not gonna walk through all the data, but an analysis that we did basically identified 79% of the repair locations that the operator selected. This is only the second pipeline that AI has seen. This is not hundreds of pipelines. When we get to 10, 15 pipelines, you'll see that number go really high.